Akputa has rebelled against us, my lords. He refused to give us Obinz's head. We want to leave now to bring both their heads. Hold on, emissaries. Obinz might have some use after all. See, he heads into the dwelling of rogue spirits who help mortals violate our laws amongst men. They will attack him. Let's see how many he will disstory before you bring me his head. Huh, who did you say this man is? Is there any ancient prophecy concerning him? Asked Shah. There is none, my lord, but there is a blood covenant over his life, replied an elder Montitoing spirit. Who made the covenant and with whom? Asked Shah. His parents made the covenant with the gods, replied the monitoring spirit. I remember now. I have no intention to honor that covenant in full. Obinz must die here, barked Shah. Obinz could tell there was something different about the spirits he was locked in a battle with. Some of them were not just trying to fight him, rather they were trying to take possession of his spirit body. Instead of fighting, Obinz saw himself resisting those spirits which were forcing their way into his spirit body. After some hours of battling them, they overpowered Obinz and took possession of his spirit body in their thousands. The energy they generated inside of him made him to collapse. When he woke up, he did everything the rogue spirits which were inside him desired. If they desired to eat filth, Obinz ate filth. When they spoke to him at the same time, Obinz would run mad and smash his head against the rocks. He would often attack himself with his machete to force out the spirits. For weeks, Obinz remained in this condition, and the elder gods watched him patiently. In a mammoth cage, Urenma lay wondering what she had done for the gods to subdue her powers and lock her up in a cage. An ugly, friendly fish swam past her cage and she called at it. Obojoro! Obojoro swam back to Urenma. Oh, my princess, why callest thou me? Asked Obojoro. Tell me, my friend, what is my sin that the lords have my power subdued and locked me in this cage? The man whom thou lovest has brought war to our world. He fighteth bravely, and many spirits he subdueth. The 6 spirits warriors have the strength of his blade felt. I understand not your meaning, O fish, of whom callest thou the man whom I love? Obinz, the man thou lovest in Uke land, has come into our world and fightest bravely. But now the rogue spirits have possessed him and maketh him mad. Obinz in the river world. No, this canst not happen, Obojoro. My lady, it happeneth even as I speaketh. The world around is that he comes to take thee back to his world. Urenma let out a cry. It rattled the cage and Obojoro took cover. The sound of her cry shook much in the river world. The elder gods and the rogue spirits both heard her. A mighty army of princesses were under her and many people. Princes who have lived in Uke loved her. If she would call for help, there were many who would come to her aid. Shah knew this and immediately he heard her cry, sent warrior spirits to guard her cage. On the floor of the cage, Urenma lay and began to search for Obinz with her mind. Her power have been subdued. This was the much she could do. Obinz was on the floor eating rubbish as the spirits in him commanded. Suddenly he felt a warmth, familiar presence, and so stopped feeding into his mouth the rubbish on the ground. In his mind he saw Urenma and her voice commanded him, "Arise!" Obinz sprang from his feet and threw himself like an arrow against the wall of the dungeon. The voice yelled again, "Arise!" In spite of himself, Obinz threw his body once again against the wall of the dungeon. By this time the voice yelled, "Arise!" the 3rd time. The command made meaning to the insane Obinz. Urenma's hair in him began to come alive again, and the rogue spirits in him took flight. The elder gods stood in awe from where they watched. For fractions of seconds the river world stood still to watch what Obinz might do. Picking his machete with which he had been cutting himself for weeks, he threw himself at the horde of rogue spirits which had assembled to fight against him. Legends had been told of men and women who were inspired by love to do the impossible. That day the river world beheld a legendary tale of its own displayed before them all. A mortal inspired by the love of his wife, a goddess of the river world, raised his machete against an army of rogue spirits and hacked them down. When they jumped on him to rip him apart, Urenma's hair shot out of him like arrows and pierced them. After days of battling, the dungeon of rogue spirits was filled with torn and mangled spirits who could not stand Obinz. Obinz wanted to run deeper into the dungeon, thinking he would see the elder gods in there. But then the voice spoke to him again, "Turn back and go left." Obinz turned and began to run to the direction. Having left the dungeon and met army of spirits, There was no need to ask them what they wanted. The plant had told him what he needed to do: battle the spirits until the gods ask you what you want. Without delay, Obinze engaged them in battle. After a long-drawn battle where the spirits could not subdue Obinze, then the unthinkable happened. An army of rogue spirits marched out of their dungeon and took sides with Obinze. No one knew who summoned them or if Urenma made them a promise. When Nisha saw what was about to happen, a war with the rogue spirits was about to begin. He knew the war would destroy the balance in the river world, so Nisha summoned the 20 elder gods, and they descended on the battleground and forced the rogue spirits back into their dungeon. But while they did that, they heard Utibe's voice, a giant monster spirit. The battle had stirred him, and when he stirs, you must give him a fight. Nisha and the 20 elder gods had not planned for things to go the way they turned out, so they finally asked Obinze what he wanted. "I brought no war to your world. I only came to plead with you to release my wife, whom you took away from me, even though you knew she died loving my people. I will pay any price you wish for me to pay for her to be returned to me, or accomplish any task you set before me. You have spoken well, Obinze, and we the elder gods respect your wish. However, it is not a bride price that you will pay. We spirits do not take that. We will give you a task, which if you accomplish, we will let you leave with Urenma," said Nisha. "What is the task? Tell me," Obinze asked bravely. "You shall enter again into the dungeon of rogue spirits and subdue Utebe. He has stirred. When you accomplish this task, we shall let you leave with Urenma." Immediately he heard the task. Obinze bolted off into the dungeon of rogue spirits. When the gods assembled in their chamber, they summoned the emissaries sent earlier to Akputa to go this time and bring Akputa and Obinze's heads. Though Obinze did not know it, the elder gods were not willing by any stretch to give him Urenma, even if he subdued Utebe. The elder gods didn't want to hear any more of men who entered the spirit world and prevailed against the spirits. By all means, they would make sure Obinze failed. The portal to the land of living would only be opened the moment Obinze died in the river world. When Obojoro learnt of the conspiracy of the elder gods, it took its greatest risk to go reveal it to Urenma. The god did not expect a small fish like Obojoro to know much or cause any harm, so they did not stop it when it entered Urenma's cage. "My princess, the elder gods plot to behead the man thou lovest. Emissaries of death they have sent to the land of men to bring his head from his body lieth. Haste you must make to save him whom thou lovest. Obojoro thy princess they have bound, and she knoweth not how from here she shall be able to save him whom she lovest. Help me, little one. If I escape from here, my power I shall gain back, and a great battle I shall wage to save my love. To help thee I am minded to do, but the consequences fearest I much, my princess. I am a princess of the gods. I have authority in this world. When my love I have saved and shown all what absurd treachery against a mere mortal the elder gods committed, I shall speak for thy freedom and those spirits thou shalt implore to help thee in my escape. If thou art sure that this shall beautifully end, then my help is whole give thee. How desirest thou to set me free from here? Small I may be, but I have friends in high places. The ground shall open under thee. When thou seest it, thou shalt fall into it, and free thou shalt be. Thank you, little one. Thank me, my princess, when thou hast thy love saved." From Urenma's cage, Obojoro swam away hastily. In short moment of time, an innumerable shoal of fish thronged Urenma's cage. The spirit guards were overwhelmed by the army of fish which descended upon Urenma's cage. Their company made a mighty dark cloud which covered and rattled Urenma's cage. By the time they swam past Urenma's cage, she was gone. All the guards saw inside her cage was a deep dark hole. Alarmed, the spirit guards fled to report the happening to Nisha. "What? No! This is not the time to let Urenma run loose. Summon the warmen of the river world from a wall of soldiers around the dungeon of rogue spirits. If Urenma so much as comes close to the dungeon, seize her, and if Obinze by a stroke of luck comes out of the dungeon, kill him." When Urenma was broken out of the cage, with great flight she made for Akputa's shrine. When she arrived, all she saw was Akputa's body lying on the ground headless. There was no sign of Obinze's body. When she heard voices which sounded to her like the voice of emissaries, she charged in that direction.